Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
Gregory Walsh never imagined that a simple prescription would completely change the course of his life. At 59 years old, he thought he knew Amanda better than he knew himself. 31 years of marriage should have meant something. They should have built a solid foundation of trust and closeness. But that Tuesday afternoon, when that small slip of paper fell out of Amanda's folder as he sorted through documents in his office, Gregory felt the ground vanish beneath his feet. The house in Charleston was quiet. Amanda had left earlier, saying she was going to the grocery store and then meeting her book club friends. Gregory was enjoying the peaceful afternoon organizing papers that had been piling up for months. It was a tedious task, but he liked the sense of order it brought. When the prescription dropped to the floor, he picked it up without thinking much, just to put it back. But his eyes caught something strange. The name on the paper wasn't Amanda Walsh. It was Paul Hendricks. Gregory frowned. Maybe it was a mistake, maybe Amanda had accidentally taken someone else's prescription. But then he saw the clinic's address, Westside Medical Center, on the other side of town. Amanda had always said she didn't know that part of the city, that she never had any reason to go there. Why would she have a prescription belonging to a man from a clinic she claimed not to know? The unease Gregory had been feeling for weeks suddenly took shape and found a name. Amanda had been different lately, more cheerful, more put together, always on her phone. She kept talking about their upcoming wedding anniversary, saying they needed to have a serious and important conversation that day. Gregory had assumed she wanted to talk about traveling more, enjoying his retirement, maybe even moving to a smaller house. But now, holding that prescription, a dark suspicion began to form in his mind. He grabbed his laptop and, with slightly trembling fingers, typed the name into Facebook. Paul Hendricks. It didn't take long to find the profile. A 52-year-old man, a literature professor at the local university, with gray hair and a confident smile, posing in photos from cultural events and lectures. Gregory's stomach turned. Amanda had been talking constantly about cultural events lately, about interesting lectures, about how intellectually stimulated she felt. Right then and there, Gregory made a decision. He wasn't going to wait. He wasn't going to spend weeks gathering evidence or torturing himself with doubts. He needed to know the truth now. He checked the clock, 3:30 p.m. The university was still open. Without a second thought, Gregory grabbed his car keys and left. The university campus was busy at that hour. Students walked in groups, carrying backpacks and coffee cups. Gregory parked in front of the humanities building and waited. He didn't know exactly what he was looking for, but something inside him said he needed to be there. 40 minutes later, he saw Paul Hendricks leaving the building. The professor was alone, wearing a tweed jacket and carrying a leather briefcase. Gregory followed him at a safe distance. Paul walked 3 blocks to a charming cafe called The Reading Room. Gregory watched from afar as the professor went inside. He waited a few minutes, then approached the window, careful not to be seen. What he saw made his heart stop. Amanda was there. Sitting at a corner table, she stood up as Paul approached. They kissed, not a casual kiss between friends, but one filled with intimacy, the kind shared by people who keep secrets and forbidden moments. Gregory saw Amanda smile in a way he hadn't seen in years. She touched Paul's face tenderly, and they sat down holding hands. Gregory felt a mix of anger, pain, and something he hadn't expected, absolute clarity. He pulled out his phone and, with surprisingly steady hands, started taking pictures. He captured several angles, making sure both of them were clearly visible. Then, before emotion overwhelmed him, he stepped back and returned to his car. Sitting in the parking lot, Gregory took several deep breaths. His mind was racing now. He wasn't a man prone to emotional outbursts, but neither was he someone who'd passively accept being deceived. He picked up his phone again and called Richard Morrison, a divorce attorney he knew from the golf club. "Richard, it's Gregory Walsh. I need to talk to you. It's urgent. An hour later, Gregory was in Richard's office, explaining everything. The lawyer listened carefully, taking notes. "Gregory, you did the right thing by documenting everything immediately," Richard said, adjusting his glasses. "Those photos, along with the prescription, are solid evidence. Do you have access to your shared computer?" "I do. I never thought about invading her privacy, but this isn't about privacy anymore. It's about protecting your interests. When you get home, see if you can access her emails. But be discreet. Don't let her know you're on to her." "Not yet." Gregory agreed. Richard then explained the legal aspects of divorce in South Carolina, the timelines, asset division, and how evidence of adultery could positively influence the division of assets in Gregory's favor. "You mentioned your wedding anniversary is in 3 days?" Richard asked. "Yes. She said she wants to have an important conversation that day." Richard shook his head. "She's probably going to ask for a divorce. It's a common, though cruel, tactic, using a meaningful date to make the announcement. Gregory, you need to be prepared and in control of the situation." When Gregory left the lawyer's office, the sun was already setting. He sat in his car for a moment, processing everything. Then he picked up his phone and called Jason, his son who lived in Boston. "Hey, Dad. What's up?" "Jason, I need you to come to Charleston. On our anniversary." "Sure, Dad. I was actually planning to call and congratulate you both. But is everything okay? You sound off." Gregory took a deep breath. "No, son. It's not okay. But I'll explain in person. I just need you to trust me and come. And Jason, don't mention anything to your mom." There was a pause. Jason knew his father well enough to understand something serious was happening. "I'll be there, Dad." When Gregory got home that night, Amanda was already there, preparing dinner. She was in a good mood, humming a tune. "Hey, sweetheart. Where were you? I tried calling. I went for a walk. Needed to stretch my legs," Gregory lied with an ease that surprised him. "How was book club?" Amanda paused for a fraction of a second. "It was wonderful. We're discussing Fitzgerald. So deep, so romantic." Gregory felt the sharp irony of those words. "Romantic. That's great," he replied, his voice neutral. That night, after Amanda went to sleep, Gregory went to the office and opened their shared laptop. He knew her password because they'd always been an open couple, or at least he'd thought they were. He accessed her email and started searching. It didn't take long to find what he was looking for. There were dozens of emails exchanged with Paul. Messages that started innocently, discussing literature and philosophy, but quickly turned far more intimate. Gregory read messages where Amanda described feeling alive again, how Paul understood her in ways Gregory never had. He read about secret meetings, the thrill of hiding, future plans. And then he found the most recent email, sent that very morning. "Paolo, I'm nervous but also relieved. I'm going to talk to Gregory on our anniversary. I know it seems cruel, but I feel I need to do it on a meaningful date so he understands this isn't an impulsive decision. It's the end of one chapter and the start of another. I can't wait to finally live our story without hiding. I love you. A. Gregory printed the most revealing emails, saved them to a flash drive, and cleared the browsing history. His hands trembled, but his resolve was firm. Amanda wanted to use their anniversary as the stage for her betrayal? Then he'd turn that stage into something entirely different. Over the next 2 days, Gregory acted normally. He prepared everything meticulously. Following Richard's advice, he transferred half the money from their joint accounts into a separate account he'd opened specifically for this purpose. He gathered important documents, certificates, deeds, financial records, and organized them into a discrete folder. Richard had already started preparing the preliminary divorce papers. Meanwhile, Amanda was visibly anxious. She obsessively cleaned the house, bought expensive ingredients for a special dinner, arranged fresh flowers in every room. Gregory watched it all with an almost surreal detachment. It was like watching a play where he knew the ending, but the other actors didn't. On the morning of their anniversary, Jason arrived. Gregory met him at a cafe before heading home and explained the whole situation in detail. Jason was visibly shaken. "Dad, I don't even know what to say. Did Mom really do this?" "She did, son. And she was planning to end it all today. But I'm not going to let her control the narrative." "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to make sure she understands the consequences of her choices. And I need you there, not to confront her, but to support me. Can you do that?" Jason nodded, his eyes glistening with held-back tears. "I'm with you, Dad." Dinner started at 7. Amanda had prepared an elaborate meal: grilled salmon, asparagus, roasted potatoes, and a caprese salad. The table was set with their best china, candles lit, soft music playing in the background. She looked beautiful, wearing a navy blue dress Gregory didn't recognize, flawless makeup, her hair perfectly styled. "It's all lovely, Amanda," Gregory said, and he truly meant it. It was as if she were dressing up for a funeral. The funeral of their marriage. They ate in tense silence. Amanda tried to make small talk, but her hands trembled slightly as she held her wine glass. Gregory responded politely, watching her every move, every expression. After dessert, a Sicilian lemon tart that used to be Gregory's favorite, Amanda set her glass down and took a deep breath. "Gregory, I need to talk to you about something important." "So do I," he said calmly. "But first, I have a surprise." Amanda blinked, confused. "A surprise?" Gregory got up and went to the office. He returned carrying the folder he'd prepared. He placed it on the table between them. "Our 31st anniversary. It's a meaningful date, isn't it? It deserves something special." Amanda looked at the folder with a mixture of confusion and growing dread. "What is this?" "Open it." With trembling hands, Amanda opened the folder. Inside were the photos of her and Paul at the cafe, printed copies of the most revealing emails, the prescription that had started it all, and an official letter from Gregory's lawyer initiating divorce proceedings. Color drained from Amanda's face. She flipped through the papers in shock, her breathing becoming irregular. When she finally looked at Gregory, tears filled her eyes. "Gregory, you were going to ask me for a divorce tonight, weren't you?" His voice was calm but heavy with restrained emotion. "On our anniversary. You carefully planned this, thinking it would be a meaningful moment to end our marriage. How did you find out? Your prescription for Paul Hendricks fell out of your folder 3 days ago. I went to the university, saw you two at the cafe. I read your emails. I spoke to a lawyer. I called Jason, who's on his way here now, because I needed someone in our family to know the truth before you tried to control the story." Amanda began sobbing uncontrollably. "Gregory, I'm sorry. I made a terrible mistake. Paul means nothing. It was just a stupid fantasy. I was feeling old, invisible, and he made me feel alive." Gregory interrupted, his voice sharp. "You felt alive betraying 31 years of trust? You felt alive planning to humiliate your husband on your wedding anniversary? It wasn't meant to humiliate. I just thought a meaningful date would show it wasn't an impulsive decision." Gregory stood up, his calm beginning to crack. "Not impulsive? Amanda, you've been cheating on our marriage for months. You met another man, built an intimate relationship with him, planned a future with him, and thought announcing it on our anniversary would somehow be respectful? I was confused. Gregory, you've always been so calm, so predictable. Our life was so routine. Paul brought excitement, deep conversations about art and literature. He made me feel interesting again. And at no point did you think to talk to me? To tell me you were unhappy? To try saving our marriage before destroying it? Gregory felt tears burn his eyes, but he wouldn't let them fall. You didn't give me that chance, Amanda. You simply decided it was easier to find someone else and then inform me as if it were an executive decision in a business meeting. It wasn't like that. I didn't plan to fall for him, it just happened. Passion doesn't justify betrayal. And you know what's sadder? You turned our anniversary, a day that should have celebrated what we built together, into a weapon. You wanted to use this day to hurt me as deeply as possible. And you know what, Amanda? You succeeded. Just not the way you planned. Gregory picked up the lawyer's letter and placed it in her hand. You wanted to ask me for a divorce tonight. Consider it granted. But this time, the rules are mine. You have two options: either you leave the house voluntarily tonight and stay in a hotel, or I'll leave. Either way, this marriage is over. And Amanda, I have solid evidence of adultery, which will significantly affect how our assets are divided. You used our money for meetings with Paul, for gifts, to build that parallel life. All of it will be taken into account. Amanda was panicking now. Gregory, please don't do this. I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. Paul was just a fantasy, a stupid midlife crisis. We can get through this. You love me? Gregory said with a bitter laugh. You were literally planning to end our marriage tonight so you could be with him. You wrote him this morning saying you couldn't wait to live your story together without hiding. That's not love, Amanda. That's convenience. You're only sorry because you got caught. Just then, the doorbell rang. It was Jason. Gregory went to answer it and returned with his son, who looked at his mother with deep disappointment. "Mom," was all he managed to say. Amanda sobbed. "Jason, honey, I can explain." "No," Jason interrupted. "There's no explanation that justifies what you did. Dad told me everything. You were going to destroy our family tonight, on your anniversary, and you didn't even have the decency to be honest before making that decision." Gregory put a hand on his son's shoulder. "Jason, please take your mother to the guest room. She'll spend the night there and tomorrow we'll find a place to stay while we sort out the divorce." Amanda tried to argue, but she was defeated. She walked upstairs with Jason, her sobs echoing through the house. That night, Gregory slept poorly, not because he regretted his decision, but because 31 years of shared life don't vanish without pain, even when broken by betrayal. The next morning, Amanda tried once more. She came downstairs with puffy, tear-stained eyes. "Gregory, please, give me a chance to fix this. I'll end things with Paul, we'll go to couples therapy, I'll do anything." Gregory was having coffee, already dressed and ready for the day. "Amanda, you don't understand. This isn't about Paul. It's about you. It's about the choices you made, about how willing you were to humiliate me, about how you meticulously planned to end our marriage on the very day meant to celebrate it. You killed my trust, my respect for you, and any love that remained. What exactly are you trying to fix? Your image in front of others? Your financial security? Because the marriage itself was already dead to you months ago." "That's not true. I was confused, scared of getting old, of being forgotten. Then you should have talked to me. But you chose another path. And now you have to live with the consequences." Amanda left the house that morning. Gregory called Richard and officially started the divorce process. The days that followed were a whirlwind. The news spread quickly among friends and family. Tired of keeping secrets, Gregory was honest about the reason for the separation. The reaction was nearly unanimous: shock and support for Gregory. Friends Amanda considered close distance themselves, stunned not just by the affair, but by the cruelty of planning the divorce announcement on their wedding anniversary. Paul Hendricks, upon learning everything had been exposed and that he was now entangled in a potentially public divorce, reacted predictably. He began distancing himself from Amanda almost immediately. When she tried to see him at the university, he was cold and detached. "Amanda, I didn't realize things were this complicated. I thought you'd already ended things with your husband, that you were amicably separating. I can't get involved in a contentious divorce. I have my career, my reputation to consider. But you said you loved me. You said you wanted a future with me. I said a lot of things in the heat of the moment. But reality is different from fantasy, Amanda. I'm sorry, but I think it's best we end our friendship here." Amanda was devastated. She'd lost everything: her husband, her lover, most of her friendships, her son's respect. She moved into a small apartment across town, far from everything she knew. The divorce process took 6 months. With clear evidence of adultery and the use of joint funds to sustain the affair, Gregory secured a favorable division of assets. He kept the house, most of their savings, and Amanda had to pay a significant portion of the legal fees. Jason maintained contact with his mother, but their relationship was never the same. He clearly saw how her choices had destroyed not just the marriage, but the entire family. A year after that fateful anniversary, Gregory was in a very different place. He sold the house full of painful memories and bought a smaller property near the beach, something he'd always wanted but never had the courage to do. He rekindled old hobbies, started traveling, visited Jason in Boston several times. He even began dating again, meeting a woman named Patricia at an amateur astronomy club he'd joined. It wasn't serious yet, but it was nice to have company, to talk about stars and the universe without the weight of past betrayals. Jason visited his father often, and the two had grown closer than ever. Gregory was at peace with himself. The pain of betrayal still existed, it probably always would, to some degree, but he'd regained his dignity. He'd proven to himself that he wasn't the passive victim Amanda had assumed he'd be. Amanda, on the other hand, was alone. Paul never spoke to her again. Her old friends avoided her. She worked at the library, returned to her empty apartment, and lived with the weight of her choices. She'd tried reconnecting with some social circles, but the story of her betrayal preceded her. People were polite but distant. She'd become a cautionary tale, an example of how betrayal and arrogance can destroy a carefully built life. What Amanda regretted most wasn't even losing Gregory or Paul, it was how she'd planned it all. That anniversary, which she'd imagined as a moment of liberation and new beginnings, had become the biggest mistake of her life. The unexpected request she'd so carefully prepared had turned into the perfect trap, one in which she herself became ensnared. One clear summer night, Gregory stood on his deck, looking at the stars through his new telescope. Patricia stood beside him, pointing out a distant constellation. He briefly thought of Amanda, how she'd been so focused on finding excitement and passion that she'd lost sight of what truly mattered: honesty, respect, genuine partnership. He smiled to himself. Yes, he'd been blindsided by betrayal. But he hadn't been defeated by it. He'd taken control, refused to be humiliated, and emerged on the other side with his dignity intact. The unexpected request Amanda had planned to make on that anniversary really did change everything. Just not the way she'd imagined. She'd built an elaborate trap, planning every detail of how she'd end the marriage on their most meaningful date. But in the end, she was the only one who fell into it, losing not just a husband, but the entire life she'd built, while Gregory, from the ashes of that destroyed marriage, found the strength to rebuild something new and true. And as he looked up at the night sky, Gregory Walsh finally felt something he hadn't felt in a long time: hope. Hope that his best days were still ahead, that the betrayal that nearly destroyed him had, in fact, freed him to live a more authentic and happier life. The trap had closed, but he was no longer caught in it. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.